Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of the second season of the Detours in Music podcast. My name is Laura Rupel, and today we have Jason Onks, owner of Onks Woodwind Specialists. Hope you enjoy.
My name is Jason Onks. I'm the owner of Onks Woodwind Specialists, where we specialize in repairing and restoring oboes. Any oboe family member, oboe, English horn, oboe d'amore, bass oboe, etc. Started my business doing that specifically about 15 years ago.
And how was your start in music?
Well, I didn't start music at all until I was basically a freshman in high school. And I started by singing in the school choir. And the school that I went to is very small, rural school here in Tennessee. And the choir director was also the band director. And so basically got the start there at the choir. But as far as band and oboe is concerned, during, I guess, the beginning of my sophomore year of high school, the crash cymbal guy in the marching band quit. And the band director, who I liked a lot, and definitely credit him with getting my start in band and oboe in general. Came to me and asked if I would finish the marching season by playing the crash cymbals. Of course, I just started music. I didn't think I was, a musician at all by any means. And so I jumped out on the marching field and held the crash cymbals, and I was awful. Like, I couldn't even do Star Spangled Banner correctly.
They're heavy.
Yeah, they are heavy. And put with that the fact I didn't know what I was doing. I'm sure it was, if there was actual video footage of that, which I'm glad there's not, but
yeah,
that would be a sight to see. So that's kind of the how I got into the music, and then how it morphed into band specifically. And then after that, I started saxophone a little bit after that. And then during concert season, I saw one of the saxophone players pick up the oboe and play for concert season. I was like, basically jealousy got me into playing oboe, because I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it too. And so the rest has been history.
Yeah. So were you a freshman in high school when you started oboe?
No, it would have been at least the end of, it might actually been my junior year. I believe it was my junior year. Yeah. Because I started playing the saxophone sometime during my sophomore year. I'm pretty sure it was my junior year.
Okay. And when you were looking at what to do after high school, was music in your mind?
Yeah, by being in the choir, as a freshman, so I was in the choir, the show choir, all that stuff, all 4 years of high school, and then I got in the band. I was doing band, so really, I don't have a good memory of things, honestly, but I must have loved it, because I stayed in band and choir, all through high school. And between those two organizations, I mean, I was always at the school preparing for marching things, football games for the marching band or concert band in the spring. We did a lot of show choir stuff, so a lot of shows. Just always doing stuff. So I was always there, and so I must have just fell in love with the music. I was very supported by my parents, who, after I started playing the oboe my junior year, but my band director must have encouraged us to take private lessons. So my parents we were able to get an oboe and started private lessons right away. And so, between all of that support, I continued to excel in it and love it. And then, I don't know, I guess that was just the next natural step, was to just continue doing that as I went into college. So I did audition at a couple colleges, and then ultimately ended up choosing Arkansas State University, where Dr. Dan Ross was the oboe professor there for 50 years. And so I was blessed to go and study with him. And I guess I was just kind of following my heart. I loved the music. Went into to college just playing oboe. Of course, I was way behind where everybody else was, because I'd only been playing oboe for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of catch-up work to do when I got to college. And so, yeah, I don't know if when I went into college as a freshman, I didn't know if I had any grand ideas of what I really would be doing with life.
Yeah.
But I definitely, got oboe scholarships and started working hard at the oboe at that point.
When you were, even if you don't have a strong memory of it, was being a repairman, I would guess, would not be something you were expecting to happen.
So yeah, not as a freshman for sure. So the repair stuff, Dr. Ross was good friends with a lot of very influential people in the oboe world, and people throughout my years of college, through undergraduate, and then even in graduate school, as I was pursuing oboe performance, because ultimately, once I got past my first couple years of college, I definitely was in love with the oboe and wanted to pursue it in a professional playing capacity, playing in an orchestra. But all through those years of college, had multiple people tell me, that they thought I would be good at repair, because I was always tinkering with the oboe. I would take my personal oboe apart just to, sometimes just to take it apart, but sometimes, to change little corks here and there. Even my oboe colleagues in undergrad and graduate school would bring me their oboe for little tweaks that I could fix, whether it's fixing a cork or oiling something or doing adjustments. I got one of the adjustment guides early in college, and started just learning how to adjust the oboe kind of on my own. Actually, I say on my own. I bet you what happened, because this is the way Dr. Ross taught, is I probably went to him one day and told him my oboe was out of adjustment, and at that point he probably gave me the adjustment book and said, "Here, go figure it out." Dr. Ross really wanted us to figure things out on our own, and then of course he was always there to help us when we really needed it and guide us. But and I think that was a big help to what I do today. I mean, basically repairing oboes every day, you've got to look at the oboe and figure it out. And so with his guidance and help, early on, I was learning how to adjust oboes.
What's something in your undergraduate degree that you struggled with?
Well, I think I might have alluded to it. The only thing that really kind of pops into my head already, I alluded to, was the fact that I started playing oboe so late compared to most people. I guess traditionally a lot of people start band in 5th grade or 6th grade, and then they continue on and go to college. So by the time they've been in college, they've been playing oboe for like 7 years or something. So struggle for me, I guess, was just being so much farther behind everybody. But I don't know. Like it was a struggle in one way and not in another because I knew what I had to do. And
Yeah.
so, with Dr. Ross's tutelage, especially in those first early years of undergraduate school, um, and just a lot of hours of woodshedding just in the practice room all the time. Um, my first several years of undergraduate school, I just remember being at the music building like at 6 a.m. I would get there so I could get some practice before my 8 o'clock classes.
Mm.
And then many nights I wouldn't go back to my dorm or my apartment until like 2 a.m. I mean, it was just a long day with all the regular classes and band and orchestra. And of
Mm.
course, as an oboist, we have to make our own reeds too. So not only do you have to have individual practice time, but you have to have individual read time, and then of course all your ensembles. And so you can fill up a 18-hour day very quickly, especially when you're behind and need to catch up with others, like I was.
Mm. But do you credit a lot of that feeling behind for just how hard you pushed yourself, maybe?
I don't know. I feel like I'm in general a very self-driven person.
Mm.
And so I just knew that I had a lot of work to do. And even if I wasn't comparing myself to my colleagues, which I'm sure I did, um, I knew that, to do something professional in the oboe world, I had a long way to go.
Mm.
And so I think just between uh, knowing what reality would be, I just really pushed myself hard and um, so that I could hopefully get there someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the time you graduated from your undergrad, were you looking at auditioning for orchestras, or what was next for you?
Yeah. So after undergrad, I looked at some graduate schools, and so my intention was to go straight to graduate school, which I did. And so, yeah, we moved. I got married right after undergrad, which was we got married in June of '97, and then I guess it must have been in August, later that summer, August of '97, is when we moved from Arkansas to Champaign, Illinois, and so I did my graduate work at the University of Illinois in Champaign, studied with Nancy King, who was there at the time. She's currently in Michigan now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, yeah, so I decided to go to grad school because at that point I was still going to be a professional oboe player, at least in my mind. And so started grad school. And then I think it was about a year into grad school, and I had planned to take about 2 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So about a year in, I started doing some auditions.
Okay.
And specifically, I went, since I was in Champaign and it was a couple hours from Chicago, I went and auditioned for the Chicago Civic Orchestra, which is, I guess, not a full-on professional orchestra the way I understand it, but it's kind of a feeder orchestra, if you will, and a lot of young players get in there. Although I think it is a paid position, but not too much. Anyhow, I auditioned for that, and it didn't go well. Yeah, at that point in my oboe playing, I thought I was getting pretty good, and so went and auditioned, and I don't know, I was probably in the room for just a couple minutes, and Alex Klein was the sole judge and jury on that audition. Of course, I think it was behind a screen, but as I was going in and out of the room, I could see him or something. I have a vague memory of that. Anyway, I didn't do too well, and that day really was the day that I decided that I wanted to pursue repair.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, all through college and even up into that point in graduate school, lots of people had told me they thought I'd be good at repair, and I did enjoy doing the repair or tinkering with the oboes. When I had time and when I was helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that day kind of taught me really how hard it is in the auditioning world, or the circuit of trying to get into a full-time professional orchestra.
Yeah.
There's a lot of oboe players out there, and one position opens up pretty much anywhere in the country. Everybody flocks to it.
Yeah.
So there can be hundreds and hundreds of people, trying to get this one position. And the kicker is, you might be the best oboe player, but you might not be the best oboe player that day.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many variables into securing a professional oboe position. And I'm very pragmatic, I guess. I knew that I needed to do something to provide for my new family. My wife and I just had gotten married about a year or so, and I don't know. For me, I didn't feel that it was going to be fun to work a lot of jobs, whether it's fast food stuff or waiting tables or doing whatever it would take until I landed that big job. That just, to me, that didn't sound appealing. And so between those thoughts and then that audition not going well, that's really when I focused, like I said before, on trying to follow the repair path.
What does that path look like for a student who's interested in doing something similar?
Yeah, good question. So the path that I followed, there are a few instrumental repair schools in the United States, and all of those schools focus on basically all instrument repair. So I guess you could say general band instrument repair.
Mm-hmm.
So you would learn how to repair all woodwinds, all brass. I think some of the schools might even do percussion or strings or something like that. But the one that I went to, which is technically not a school, but it is a full-time business that allows apprentices basically to come in. When I went there, the owner of the business allowed 3 apprentices a year. So you're sitting there working, learning, being taught by the people that work in that business.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through different departments in the business. So you learn how to do the dent work and the soldering and all the woodwind disassembly and reassembly and padding and buffing. Every aspect that you might need for woodwind or brass repair. And so it was the program. It's called Badger State Repair in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, and it's a 1 year. Or when I went, it was a 1 year program. I think it probably still is today. And so you basically 1 year gets a very quick crash course
Mm-hmm.
on how to basically repair all band wind instruments, because they don't do any percussion or strings there.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's the route that I took. There's a couple other schools that are very similar to that, and the duration of the schooling may be longer, and they may be set more like a technical college, so you might get some lecture on top of hands-on type of stuff.
Okay.
The one I went to, since it was a business with apprentices, it was just basically hands-on every day for that whole year. So it was only getting lectured to by the guy that was helping you, I guess, as you're messing something up or
Yeah.
or whatever. And then so now I specialize in oboe, and that's all that we repair in our shop. And so if somebody were wanting to go into repair as a specialist, they would have to either just start doing it on their own if they had mad enough skills to do that. Definitely that somebody could just start out on their own from the very beginning and just start doing it. But most of the time, it would be very beneficial for people that want to be a specialist to find an apprenticeship and go in and work with another specialist, to learn and to hone skills. And then, if you were able to find somebody like that, depending on how long they let you stay there, or if you ended up working for them for a long duration, either way, it's going to take years and years before you really kind of develop that that sense that what you're really what you're doing. It takes a very long time. For instance, when I finished repair school and I got my first job, which I started working for a music store band repair shop, and I repaired all woodwind instruments there. So when I got that job and my manager brought me in, he's like, "Well, you just got out of school, just the basics, and although you may think you know a lot, but he said in about 7 years, you'll really start feeling like you know everything that you could tackle almost anything. And you'll have enough skills after about 7 years to just really start doing amazing work." I thought he was crazy, but he was dead on right.
Yeah. When did you open up your business?
So I opened my business in 2005, September 1st, 2005. So I've had my business for 15 years now, or almost 15, I guess. And so I worked for that music store that I just talked about, January of 2000. And so just right under 6 years, I worked for them and learned a ton from the repair shop manager, the other repair technicians that worked there, a lot of really experienced repair technicians, and they taught me a whole lot of stuff. All along the time, or the way, I knew I did want to have my own repair shop and focus on oboe specialty. It's just I didn't know when that would happen, and just a series of events happened, and things felt good. And I spent about a year planning to open my business, and so ultimately, with all the planning and everything, I was able to open that in September of 2005.
Do you encourage young oboists to try to tinker with their own instruments?
I absolutely do. Yes. There are different trainings of thought on that, I guess. Different teachers and repair techs think differently on this, but basically, if you're an oboist and you're going to do this, you don't necessarily even have to be a professional, but even adult amateur oboists sometimes teach younger students. But if you're a adult amateur or a professional, you're going to be playing in an ensemble at some point. You're going to be teaching students at some point. If you are a professional and you make your sole living from playing the oboe, you're going to run into times when your oboe just stops functioning the way that it should. And so I do feel that it's absolutely critical that every oboist, once you get past to a certain point, so if you're pursuing oboe and you're in college learning oboe, you should start learning at that point how to make basic adjustments on your oboe. And
Yeah.
then by the time, and when I go to studios and I speak to studios about this, I I compare it to them learning Mozart oboe concerto or something.
Yeah.
You can't just pick up the music and play the Mozart oboe concerto perfectly, in a day or so. And so it takes a lot of practice over a long period of time. And learning to adjust your oboe and what all the different screws do on your oboe is exactly the same thing. It can be complicated if you don't know what you're doing. It can be confusing. And so if you have a good oboe adjustment manual, which there are many of them out there, you just have to start reading that and looking at your oboe and just trying little things here and there. And just over time, if you do that, just like you're studying for any class or learning any piece of music, I feel that, by the time you get out of college, or if you're an adult and you're not in college and you haven't learned how to do this yet, with a little bit of study over time, you can learn to be very proficient at doing that. So I definitely recommend all oboists learn how to make adjustments on their oboe.
Is there a specific adjustment guide you recommend?
So, not specifically, but the only thing I will say is that, back in the day when Dr. Ross gave me an adjustment guide and told me to go upstairs, of course, the upstairs, the second floor of our music building where the oboe studio was, he told me to take that up there and start learning how to do adjustments. That was the Sawicki guide, the Carl Sawicki oboe adjustment guide. So that's the one I started out of, and it's great. I know there's quite a few out there. Pat McFarland had one, if it's still available. Pat McFarland passed away recently, the past year or so. So if his is available, it's a good one. Of course, the Sawicki one that I started out is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's more out there. I just don't know them off the top of my head. It's been a long time since I looked at those, but I'm sure if you found any of them, they would be fine. And I am working on one. I don't think it's public on my website or anything, but I'm kind of working on a new system. So if anybody would like to contact me, I could actually email them what I have.
Okay.
And so that I would be happy to share that. I do share it when I go and speak to oboe studios. I do take copies of that and go through that with them so that they can start learning where they are.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you have advice for young musicians who are kind of at their detour moment of what they're actually going to do with music?
Yeah. So the detour part, that's a great word. I think a detour, I guess getting into what that might mean too, doesn't necessarily mean a negative connotation.
Yes.
For sure. Now it may mean that you had things all planned out, and you have to go a different path now, or not even a different path, but a detour. You might have to go around, like if the interstate is shut down, because of a bad car wreck, and you have to get off one exit and go around it, right?
Yeah.
I guess that would be a detour. And so, with just in life in general, I think this would be the same answer. I have 2 teenage daughters, and these would be the same answer for them and for life. And as a young musician that thinks they know what they're doing, but maybe it's not panning out,
Mm-hmm.
is that whatever you're working toward, you have to work very diligently, try to stay as focused as you can, and you have to work very hard at that every single day.
Mm-hmm.
As the detour is happening, you may not know what route to take,
Mm-hmm.
but if you continue working hard at the basic thing that you're doing, so whether that's playing the oboe or you're sitting at a bench trying to learn how to do repair, or you're teaching young kids. I mean, it takes a lot of practice to be a great teacher too. So you can start teaching a young student, and it may not go so well, but a couple years into teaching students, it's more second nature maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so really with all those scenarios, it's just to work really hard, keep your nose to the grindstone. Excellence happens over time with being diligent every single day. You can't be excellent at something if you don't work hard at it, is basically what it comes down to. And so there may be a lot of days that you're working hard, but you're not really sure why or exactly where it's going to lead you.
Yeah.
But that is cumulative. It stacks up. Like you can have like 6 months. It can be a really bad time for you for 6 months, and then boom, all of a sudden, like all these breakthroughs happen.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're auditioning for orchestra positions or if you're wanting to go repair and trying to find an apprenticeship or trying to get hired by a music store. I mean, there's so many adversities, and you just have to try to be as positive as you can and work hard. There's going to be lots of bad days though, and you just have to just keep pushing forward.
Have you ever considered what you would do if you weren't involved in music?
Oh my gosh. If I don't know. So if I thought about that question like back in high school, like
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what the answer to that would be. After I found music like my freshman year of high school, and then was so involved all through high school, and then going into college playing the oboe, that's really kind of all that I knew. I never, well, I did play tennis once. I did play tennis like 1 year on the high school tennis team, but I definitely didn't see myself as a pro tennis player.
Yeah.
So if looking at sports, I was not really into sports so much, and even as an adult now, I don't watch any sports. I could care less about sports. Although
Yeah.
I am a runner, so I do spend a lot of time outside running. But as far as organized sports, that definitely would not have been a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Like, if I had to have chosen something out of high school, I have no idea where my life would be right now if I did not have music. Um, Now, with hindsight, going to college and having 20 years of repair under my belt now,
Mm-hmm.
just the nature of what I do for a living, I'm good with my hands. I have to look at stuff and figure out what's wrong with it. And a lot of times before you can repair something, you kind of got to figure out how it got messed up to begin with. So you kind of have to do forensics, Of course, with oboe, it's not as much, but especially like back when I worked at the music store and I repaired saxophones and flutes, if a kid drops a saxophone, it can get damaged in just a multitude of ways.
Yeah.
And depending on how that damage happens will determine how you repair the saxophone.
Okay.
And so you really have to do some detective work. So, just having that ability to look and see what has happened, and then to be able to take stuff apart and fix it. Basically building stuff. Sometimes you have to make new parts or build things. And so knowing that I have those skills because I do this repair every day, I could see myself now, like, if I had to, you know, I don't know, building furniture, cabinet maker, working wood and building things. That actually kind of sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
I could see myself doing something like plumbing or electrician. Those are all, kind of things you have to build and think about and, use basic math to, especially in being an electrician, you would have to have different math skills to figure out voltages and wattages and currents and all that kind of stuff. So that would be kind of cool. But I don't know. My oldest daughter, who is now college age, is kind of going into the health field.
Okay.
And I think it might be kind of cool to do something. It could be cool to do something like that. Some kind of service work, like EMT work, paramedic work. I could see myself doing something where I could, assist people as well, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, there's so many things out there that that anybody can do, and that's the other factor of it. You can't. I really find to be satisfied and to love what you do. You ultimately, what it comes down to is you have to be helping people, because I don't know, it gets boring, and if you're just trying to do something to simply bring money in and to satisfy yourself, at some point it's just you're gonna lose interest, and it's not gonna be fun anymore. And so a lot of people say love love the work that you do, and you won't have to work another day in your life, kind of saying, and that's kind of true, and it's but I really think the other caveat to that, to love it, is that ultimately you have to be helping people and having the satisfaction of doing that. And so I do get that from repairing oboes and helping people play better. It's very difficult to enjoy playing music if your equipment is in terrible shape and you can't perform well.
Definitely.
So playing oboe or any instrument honestly is hard enough without having an instrument that doesn't function. And so helping people do that really brings satisfaction and joy to myself and my team members, because there are two employees, Nick and Sam, that work here with me. And so if I had to carry that into another field, like we've been talking about, the medical field, helping people that way, or like the plumbing or the electrician scenarios, that's all going out and helping people, making people's lives better by having properly functioning plumbing and electric in their house or wherever. So you definitely, I think that's a big key with longevity and being satisfying yourself and helping people, for sure.
Well, I know that I've been very appreciative of my experiences with your shop. I don't know if you remember, but in March, my teacher, Dr. Zyko, called you kind of in a panic with me in a lesson.
Yes, I do remember.
Yes, so I feel very grateful that you took time out of your day to try to help us out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my pleasure. It's those moments, when it's really the most gratifying. I mean, most of the business that we do, we schedule all of our repairs. So our clients know when we're going to work on their instrument. They know when they're going to get it back. They don't have to just send it in and wait, for weeks or months, to get it back. But in those times of emergency, we also like to be there for people. And so you're not the first person that we've, worked with over the phone or through video, FaceTime, Skype, that type of scenario. And, sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not, but we always try our best whenever we can to help people out. So we're just honored that you have used our shop and have found the service satisfying.
Of course, yes. I think my final question for you, and you might have answered this a little bit before, would be, what are some of your current goals for your shop or for your field?
Yeah, I guess probably the goals are simply to keep doing really consistent quality work every day. Sometimes I think what I might like to do with the business, but ultimately we are, a service business. We don't do sales here. And so we're really focusing on doing this one thing, oboe repair and restoration. We're focusing on doing that to the absolute best ability that we can. And I just feel that doing other things, selling stuff, doing more, getting to other aspects of music business can detract from doing one thing excellently.
Yeah.
And like I said, it takes years and years to develop that. And so even though I've been repairing for 20 years and I've had my business for 15, there's still way more improvement that can happen. We're always improving. And sometimes the improvement has to do with the materials that we are using. So sometimes we're limited to the supplies and the materials that we use in our business that we buy from the vendors. And so, we may be experimenting with different materials so that we can get a much more accurate, adjustment on an oboe, that type of thing. So there's always stuff we can experiment with to ultimately make the overall job that we do better. So, yeah, I would say that's probably it, is just to continue trying to do what we do every day at an excellent level, which is very challenging. Different customers have different needs, different instruments, of vintage of instruments can have their own challenges. And so trying to do that most professional work on all range of instruments as far as ages go and models and brands, it can be very challenging, and to meet all the needs of the customer can be very challenging. And so it's just really, you got to stay very focused mentally every day, and just ultimately everything that we do, and the guys and I talk about this in the shop. We just have to slow down and make sure that we're ultimately doing the job right, no matter what. And so if we have to do a job and it takes 2 hours longer than we really think that it should, most of the time we don't charge the customer for that extra time, because ultimately we just want the job to be done at a reasonable rate as far as time, but being superior as far as the quality of the repair. And so we just want our customers to be happy. We want them to come back. And so, spending that a little bit of extra time and serving our customers and doing that quality work is the most important to us here in this shop.
Well, you definitely picked a finicky instrument to specialize in.
Right?
So
No kidding.
I'm sure it's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, they are, no doubt about it. And there's so many moving parts, but um, we enjoy it. It's enjoyable for us. We see the enjoyment of our clients just from all the feedback that we get from our clients.
Mhm.
Um, and that ultimately, like I said before, that's what it's about is making our clients' lives easier so that they can love playing music. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
My pleasure, Laura. I appreciate you asking.
Of
It's
course.
been my honor to share.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Jason Onks. The Detours in Music podcast is a place for all musicians of each level, profession, and specialty to be heard. To access more information from Jason Onks, visit his website, onksws.com. We often think of people outside of the world of music as being people who don't know all the potential career opportunities that are involved in music, but I actually find that a lot of people within the music community are not aware of a lot of the options they have or a lot of the niche fields where they could find their perfect job. If you'd like to keep up with the podcast, there are multiple ways you can do so. First of all, you can go to our website, which is detoursinmusicpodcast.weebly.com. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel, also called Detours in Music Podcast. We also have a Facebook page and Instagram account where you can like and follow us. And on the first of every month, we have some episodes come out on Apple Music podcast apps and Spotify apps. On these apps, you can subscribe and rate the podcast. If you ever want to get in touch with me and give more direct feedback, you can email me at detoursinmusicpodcast@gmail.com. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you catch the next one.